properties reality, and what was it like? I mean, the way that I kind of like to think that this theory is more or less correct is that that the I've lost my track now. I've thought about this before. It's about um, uh, maybe this is just fucking confusing me actually. What was it? Fundamental property. Oh yeah, that. For example, there's that. There's the. I remember reading once in a website article by a philosopher called I think he was Hubert Dreyfus actually. I don't know if it was Hubert Dreyfus, but actually I did think that. And I remember later I listened to his whole lecture course on Heidegger, and I thought actually ultimately it's just like he's stretching some man's like masturbations about existentialism too far. But the main point of existentialism, I think, is still scientifically valid. The main point of existentialism is like like I love the way that he portrayed it was the Matrix. Actually, it's ridiculous to use the Matrix as an example, but like the fact that like that you can imagine like Neo is supposed to all of a sudden come out of the Matrix and realize that the real world, that he was fooled, that the world around with him was all just an illusion, no? And that yeah, I mean, like he comes to recognize that the world around him was just illusion, and he accepts it, and he tries to save the real world from the illusion of the Matrix. But the whole film fails utterly because, I mean, it doesn't actually solve the philosophical problem that tries to go out to solve, namely. What is the fucking difference between the real world and the Matrix? As in, like, what stops a second Morpheus, Dorpheus, from, like, like, once Neo has come out to the real world, what stops a Dorpheus coming out into the real world and saying, actually, you know what, Neo, it wasn't right, like, you've yet again, alas, been fooled, and like this is not the real world. Like the real world is outside of this, and Neo yet again gets plucked out, and he's like, fuck, like Dorpheus and Morpheus were right. That wasn't the real world. This is the real world, and the story of it is that the bottom line is of that story is that it doesn't matter that one can never. Reality ultimately is whatever you can the very first thing that presents itself already as in your presence, no? Like you can start questioning all sorts of shits about things, and like about you can even question about you can study like through a machine the brain of your own very brain, like about how it's functioning, and you can create physical theories about how the brain is creating this experience. But truly, at the very bottom, the very bedrock of this whole architecture is the fact that like you have to be, you already have to accept that you are, like sort of, like in the, like dwelling in the world, right? There's no way around it.
Heidegger, yeah.
And that is well, it's not just Heidegger, but that is the essence of existentialism. Of course, existentialists just go on and just talk about all sorts of like they fucking have wanks about how cool that insight was, which I personally do think that is a very good insight. But then they like this course on Heidegger was just like like very technically like philosophical and sophisticated, and actually ultimately no man, he just starts I think that is, well, okay, I could be wrong, but to me, that is the takeaway from existentialism. And I think that is even scientifically defensible, no? Like, before you even start creating scientific theories and so on, etc., the very first thing
There's
that you
just
must accept is that
being.
you are that there is actually properties of actually like being or and you know that's now you couple that with the idea that that the world is sort of deterministic, you know, like there are laws of physics that are um, uh, determining the outcomes in some sort of probabilistic manner, and uh, I think you can more or less uh, sort of where was I going actually with this? Where was the that yeah, I mean that's so since there's nothing you cannot simply whatever happens you cannot deny your own experience. It's what it's saying, no? Like your very own experience. So so that's if you accept your own experience and you understand that the laws of physics are telling you what your own experience, you know, if you accept the rationality and so on, and all of a sudden all those experiences are telling you that, you know, your experience is caused by some material cause, then I think to some extent that may actually suggest that the very act of experience is actually fundamental to the you know, like as in, you know, like that therein lies, you know, the capacity to see color lies within the you know, sort of throughout the whole explanation you sort of come down and you sort of, you know, like reach again to and you say, well, yeah, the laws of physics seem to be creating this machine that this is capable of all of a sudden creating, you know, like this experience of color, and then you map, you know, you reach the mapping between, you know, like this experience of color and this measurement within science, which is just a cognitive, you know, like language and mathematics and so on structure. But once you make that mapping, you can actually say, well, you know, like you know, like so the problem is within physics is or within like our normal understanding of mechanics is that where does consciousness lie in all this brain and stuff, no? Well, I think personally, I think that this whole like loop does actually end up possibly suggesting the fact was true, but that actually the color of orange must exist out there in the universe. The color of green, the color of like lights and the senses of experience must exist out there, and you know, like they are in some way more fundamental than the laws of physics. You know, like in some way they are the closest we can be to reality. You know, like those very like qualities of that make reality is the closest we can ever be to reality. Yeah, I don't know.
But you know, I have a very strong opinion about that, Chris, and that is that, you know, that actually experience is the main thing that exists. And actually, you know, everything is retroactively caused because of that experience. It, you know, there's basically you start with nothing, and then all this mathematics and stuff creates this universe, which creates these self-conscious beings, which then basically they see, and that is somehow that it causes its own existence.
This is the
whole, you know, it causes
experience.
the Big Bang. It causes the Big Bang.
Well,
Our mind,
man, I
our
don't know about
consciousness.
consciousness is the Big Bang. I really don't know about that extent. I mean, like, you know, causing the Big